And on the theme of the United States shredding the rules-based international order, or making a mockery of that phrase, or perhaps we could say weaponizing it against the real international order, the United States just vetoed a Security Council draft resolution at the UN that would have demanded an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all hostages under obvious orders from Netanyahu and the Israeli regime. And we've seen this image so many times of an American representative holding the lonely hand of shame aloft on the Security Council at the United Nations to extend the genocide in Gaza, the war in Lebanon, the escalation across the region, all on behalf of the Israeli regime. And it's always a Black person that's doing it, which is just so sad and speaks to the demise of liberalism that's taking place in the United States as it's reduced to empty, hypocritical symbols. So I don't know what else there is. What else there is to say here? The United States Senate just blocked a bill by Bernie Sanders that would have penalized the Pentagon for missing its 7th audit in a row with $1 trillion missing. It looks like the Senate will shoot down Bernie Sanders' bill to block offensive weapons to Israel because they're controlled by AIPAC. We're looking at a morally depraved government in the United States that is almost alone in the world, except with its vassals in the West who are increasingly turning against it, all because of a tiny little apartheid state 6,000 or 7,000 miles away.
I think this is the 4th or 5th time that the U.S. has vetoed a UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire, and that's a part of dozens of times, nearly 50 times, that the U.S. has vetoed a UN Security Council measure, that's critical of Israel. So this is just the U.S. playing its traditional role of protecting Israeli aggression at the world's highest forum. And the thing about the Senate vote, 19 senators total, including Bernie Sanders, voted to suspend these arms transfers, which I believe is a record in the Senate. That's a record. And of course, the Biden administration was, viciously or intensively lobbying Democrats not to vote for this. Biden officials accused basically Bernie of supporting Hamas by voting for this, but Bernie did get 18 other people, which is a record. But then the question becomes, where were these people before? Why are they only doing this now? I mean, John Ossoff of Georgia gave a great speech on the Senate floor, but where were you before? These same people,
Jewish Senator John
Jewish
Ossoff.
Senator, yeah. I mean, it's great to see now, but way too late. These people, most of these people, including Chris Van Hollen, they've all voted for previous arms transfers from the U.S. to Israel.
Yeah, Chris Van Hollen really puzzles me. I think he gave the best speech. It was clear he was really participating in this measure, that he was into it, that he was fluent in the subject matter, that he was indignant, but he's been raising the alarm about Israeli atrocities from the Senate floor as a senator from Maryland, with a heavy constituency of AIPAC, AIPAC members in suburban DC and Baltimore who have supported him and donated to him. And every time after he gives one of these speeches, these jeremiads against Israeli atrocities, he turns around and votes for more military aid to Israel. So this is the first time he's taken actually a material step back, and it's taken over a year for these clowns to do this. Bernie Sanders himself was opposed to a ceasefire for over 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
What did they all have like a limit? They'd like go to some whiteboard in their office and draw up a random arbitrary number of children that can be killed by Israel and then wait till it crosses that threshold? I mean, what do they do to decide that they'll finally put their foot down?
One of Chris Van Hollen's excuses was the fact that the money for arming Israel was also packaged in with money for arming Ukraine.
Yeah.
And Chris Van Hollen said, I couldn't possibly vote against arming Ukraine. So great job to progressives for, getting behind the Ukraine proxy war and therefore giving people an excuse to also arm Israel, because Biden correctly saw these two proxy wars, or like these two disasters, as interlinked, because both of them are there to advance U.S. hegemony. That's why the U.S. is arming both Israel and Ukraine. But he can't. In this case, he lost that excuse and finally took a vote, rarely against Israel. But to answer your question, I think it was. I mean, it's obvious. AIPAC. He didn't want to have AIPAC coming after him. AIPAC is just bragging about how like 96% of the races that they got involved in were successes for AIPAC, and so and they can point to the ousting of Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman to anybody who's considering falling out of line. But 19 senators, that's a record. That is a step forward, although a very tiny one. But it is something that record number of senators, all Democrats, not a single Republican could bring themselves to vote for this. Not even Rand Paul, who's supposed to be the anti-war libertarian, but can never remember his anti-war libertarian beliefs when it comes to arming Israel. Not even Rand Paul could vote for this on the Republican side.
I didn't know that. That's truly pathetic.
Yeah.
That John Ossoff could do it, representing Atlanta, and Rand Paul can't do it. I remember Rand Paul actually early on when he was running for Senate, he said, we need to look at military aid to Israel and reducing it. Next thing you know, he's on a trip to Israel, funded by AIPAC.
Yeah. If you talk to his staffers, the people around him, they know exactly what's up. They're very aware of what's happening, but just when it comes time to vote, doesn't matter.
They're probably watching.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rand Paul staffers carrying the spirit of Ron Paul, who will, he's got to be shaking his head at home. And Jamal Bowman, after being defeated, I saw him say that he offered to go to Michigan to like save the day for Kamala Harris. That's pretty pathetic, like a total lack of dignity. The party went against you. They didn't defend you against AIPAC. They wanted you out. The whole party wanted you out, and you're going to go campaign for them. And do they really want you like slamming a chair on stage and engaging in those kind of antics? I don't think so. But they sent Richie Torres, who is owned by AIPAC, to campaign in Michigan. Let's not forget how they lost.